All right. Now, basic ecology. Ecology was the term, this term has been coined by Ernest Haeckel. And what does this mean? Ecology means that, you know that the environment is the surrounding in which we live. The surroundings that we have around us is environment, and it is composed of living things as well as non-living things. All right, it consists of living as well as non-living things. So these living things that exist along with the non-living things, they interact with each other. And this study of the interaction between living things and non-living things is termed as ecology. How non-living things are affecting the living beings, and how living beings are, you know, taking advantage of the non-living things, or maybe affecting them in some or the other way. So the pattern or the how this interaction takes place, the study of this interaction is termed as ecology. All right, this interaction between the living things and the non-living things of the environment is termed as ecology. So Ernest Haeckel in 1866 coined the term ecology. Underline that. Who gave this term ecology? Ernest Haeckel gave this term, and in the year 1866, and defined it as the total relations of animals to both their organic and inorganic environment. So the proper definition that Haeckel gave was that the relation of an animal to its organic and inorganic environment is known as ecology. So now, what are these organic, inorganic components? How animals interact with these components? That we are going to deal with in this chapter. The living organisms and the environment interact with and are dependent upon each other, and together constitute an integrated unit called ecological system or ecosystem. Now, in simple terms, you can understand ecosystem with, like, there are components of the environment, and then there is interaction between these components. So there are two things. First of all, there are components of the environment, that is all your living and non-living, organic, inorganic, everything, all the components, and then how these components are interacting with each other. Taking these two things together, the components and the interaction between the two components, taking these things together, you can say it is an ecosystem. All right, the interaction, the study of interaction is ecology, and the complete thing, the components as well as their interaction, their effects on each other, everything, when you group it all together, then we can say it is ecosystem that we are dealing with. So the living organisms and the environment, they interact with each other, they are dependent on each other. How they are dependent? For example, that I derive my food from the trees, all right, or from the crops or the plants. So I am dependent on the plants or the crops. So the components of the environment, they are dependent on each other, and together they constitute an integrated unit. Integrated unit means a whole, means this is a complicated system where everything is interrelated to each other, forming a single unit. They cannot exist alone, but all these components, they exist as a unit. Like we, all the people of India, exist together as Indians, so we form a unit as a country. So similarly, the components of environment, they are dependent on each other, they cannot stay alone, and therefore they are together with each other as a unit. All right, so this complete unit, taking everything together, is called ecological system or ecosystem. Thus, the ecology of a place consists of all different species of plants, animals, microorganisms, and their non-living environment like air, water, soil, which are essential for their survival. So, if you consider ecology of a place, that is, you try to study the interaction between the components in a particular place. You take up a place and you want to study how things are dependent on each other over there. So you are going to deal with all the different species of animals or birds or microorganisms, whatever they are present over there. You will have to consider each and every species, and then this would be the living part. Then you will have to take up all the non-living parts, that is the air over there, how the air over there is, means it is humid air or maybe dry, or how the, what is the composition of the air at that place. All right, it is whether is warm or cold, how is the water over there, how is the soil over there, what is the texture of the soil, whether it is clayey or sandy, or whether it is rich in what particular minerals. Each and everything you would have to consider. All right, both in case of living as well as in case of non-living, you will have to study each and every aspect, and then you are going to understand that how things are interrelated to each other or interdependent on each other. All these non-living components which are essential for their survival. Whose survival? The survival of the living beings. These non-living components are essential or necessary for the survival of the living beings. Can we survive without air? No. Why? Because we need air to breathe. We need oxygen from air. We need carbon dioxide from air for our plants to make food. All right. Each and every component present in our environment is necessary. Had even one of them been removed, nature would become, the balance would go away from the nature. All right. So ecology is the only science which stresses the function and importance of non-living environment in the study of living organism. So ecology is the only science or the study where we are talking about the functioning and the importance of non-living part of the ecosystem. Everywhere we deal with the living part, how things are being dealt with it, but how much important the non-living components are, that we deal with only in ecology. That how the non-living components are very, very necessary or very, very essential for the living beings. What is their importance, that we study only in ecology. So I hope you've underlined the definition of ecology, the first line. Underline that the total relations of animals to both their organic and inorganic environment. All right. Then you mark ecosystem also. The living organisms and the environment interact with and are dependent upon each other, and together constitute an integrated unit called ecological system or ecosystem. If you are asked definition of ecology or maybe ecosystem, then you are going to write these definitions. All right. Then according to S. Mathavan, in 1974, an ecosystem is the total sum total of living organisms, the environment, and the processes of interaction between and within all parts of ecosystem. What did I just explain? Same thing, that the components as well as their interaction is total. When you take it up as a whole, then it is said to be an ecosystem. So same thing has been defined by S. Mathavan in 1974. He said that ecosystem is what? It is the total of the living organisms present, the environment of the place, and the process of interaction that is taking place between all the parts of the system that is over there. So this is defined as ecosystem. You can mark it, put a bracket or maybe underline it, mark it, because it can be asked that how Mathavan has defined the term ecosystem. The study of ecology can be done from various angles. From functional point of view, each ecosystem can be divided into two components. So on the basis of how ecosystem is functioning, we can divide the components of ecosystem into two parts, that is autotrophic and heterotrophic. Functional point of view means what are they doing? These two components, what is the autotrophic component doing for the environment, and what is the heterotrophic component doing for the environment? What are their functions? So autotrophic component, the autotrophic component, mainly the plants fix the energy of the sun and manufacture food from simple inorganic compounds. So what is the autotrophic component do? It is mainly composed of plants, means the autotrophic components, they are mostly plants, and what they do, they trap the energy of the sun, and then they convert this energy of the sun into chemical energy, that is they manufacture food out of it from simple organic compounds. It takes simple organic compounds from the environment, it traps energy from the sun, and then it converts those inorganic compounds to food, the food that we eat. All right. So what is the main function of the autotrophic component? To capture the energy of the sun and transform and manufacture food for the others. All right. Then heterotrophic component. The heterotrophic component, mainly the animals, bacteria, fungi, etc., utilize the food produced and stored by autotrophs. Now, what is the function? Their function? Their function is to utilize the food that has been manufactured by autotrophs. Means the autotrophs are manufacturing the food and the heterotrophs are consuming them. So the heterotrophic component mostly consists of the consumers. All right. Therefore, we often term autotrophs as producers and the heterotrophs as consumers. You must have studied these terms, producers and consumers, before. Yes or no? You are studying science from, I don't know, class 4 to something. So you must be knowing that producers, they manufacture food, and consumers, they consume that food. So here the same thing is there, that the autotrophs are manufacturing food for others, and the heterotrophs are utilizing that food or consuming that food that the autotrophs are manufacturing for them. So this was the division on the basis of functions. All right, taking it from the structural point of view. From the structural point of view, each ecosystem has two components. So now when we deal with how they are structured, how they are formed, the various components of ecosystem, how they are formed, when we deal with it, then we find that they, again, this is divided into two components, abiotic components and biotic components. When we study the structure of the components of the ecosystem, then we find that again the division is of into two, that is abiotic and biotic. Abiotic components or factors are the non-living components that are required by living organism for various life processes. Now this is very simple. Abiotic are the non-living ones, biotic are the living ones. As simple as that. Abiotic components are all the non-living parts of the ecosystem, like air, soil, water, everything of that kind, that is non-living. And biotic component is all the living part of the ecosystem, the living components. So as the definition says, you can underline it. Abiotic components or factors are the non-living components that are required by the living organisms for various life processes. Why they are necessary to exist in the ecosystem? Because they are required by the living organisms for their survival. All right, living organisms cannot survive without the non-living organic part of the ecosystem. Now, what are included in this abiotic? They include inorganic substances, organic substances, and ecological factors. Now, what are inorganic substance, organic, or ecological factors? The inorganic substances include biogenic salts, which are the dissolved salts vital to life and are important as limiting factors in soil and water. Nitrogen and phosphorus salts are of major importance. So the compounds or the salts that are present, for example, the nitrogen salts, the phosphorus salts, all these are present in water and soil, and they form the inorganic substances, and they are very essential for especially the plant growth. Nitrogen compounds, all these fertilizers are added to the crops, you must be knowing the farmers add fertilizers to the crops. So what are these fertilizers? These fertilizers are nothing but compounds of nitrogen and phosphorus and all other essential salts that are necessary for plant growth. So these compounds of nitrogen and phosphorus and other things, they are known as the inorganic substances, and they are very essential. Why? Because without them the plants would not grow. So all these biogenic salts, please mark that word, biogenic salts, they form the inorganic part of the abiotic component. Then macronutrients are the elements that are required in large quantity. For example, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, etc. They are required in large quantities, and therefore they are present in abundance on the earth. For example, oxygen. Oxygen is required by all the living things. Animals, they breathe in oxygen 24 hours. All right, all the animals. Plants also, they take in oxygen at night when they do not have to perform photosynthesis. Similarly, there is carbon, hydrogen. All these compounds, they are required in very huge amount. All right. The water that we drink is also a compound of hydrogen and oxygen itself. You know that it is H2O, right? So we need these compounds, and we need them in abundance. Means a huge quantity is required. Then micronutrients are the nutrients required in small amount. There are some certain nutrients that are required in very small amounts only. For example, copper, manganese, selenium, zinc, silicon, etc. Maybe not for consuming, but for some other purposes. But sometimes for consuming also, like zinc is present in our body in very small amounts, minute amount, but it is present in our body. And if there is a deficiency of that even small amount, body starts performing weirdly, some of the organs would not work effectively. All right. So then we have calcium present in our body. Although the amount varies of the various nutrients, the amount varies, but all these are essential for us. All right, not only us, for the other animals, for the plants, for the microorganisms. Each one of us have our own requirements, different requirements. All right, some would require certain thing in abundance, the other thing in small amount, the other one would require something else in abundance and something else in a small amount. But each one of us require all of these nutrients that are present in the environment. These are vital for the growth and survival and propagation of living organism, and act as limiting factor. So they are known as they are vital. Vital means important or essential for the growth, that is growing of the living organisms and their survival, their existing, it is essential for their existence, and propagation. Propagation means their for their birth of their young ones, and then their spreading out everywhere. So, and they act as limiting factor, means if they will not be available, these things will not be available, then the growth would be restricted. When present in less than required quantity, they limit the growth and production, and when in excess, these nutrients damage the plant. So, giving an example with the plant, they're saying that if these nutrients are present in less quantity than it is required, for example, the soil is not nutritious enough for the crops to grow, then the yield would be less. You would get less yield from the crops. So you prefer to add fertilizers to the crops, so that the plants are not they do not have a lack of nutrients, and then the yield increases. They get a good yield of crops. Therefore, we add fertilizers to increase the amount of nutrients in the soil so that there is no lack of nutrients. But similarly, if you add too many fertilizers, or sometimes it happens that you water your crops or plants too much, and then you find that the leaves are wilting. You say that I have watered my plant so much and the leaves are wilting and decaying. No, the problem is that even the excess damages the plants. There should not be excess, there should not be a lack. There should always be the particular required amount. The supply should be just as much as there is demand. All right, whatever is the requirement, just supply that much. Therefore, it is said to be a limiting factor. Why? Because even the lack of it is going to harm, and even the excess of it is going to harm. So it is going to limit the growth in either case. Therefore, these nutrients act as limiting factors. Then organic substances, like just now we dealt with inorganic substances. Now talking about what are the organic substances of the abiotic component. Organic substances like the carbohydrate, fats, lipids, and their derivatives, which are formed by composition of the organisms, and their excreta are also included in the abiotic component. Now, carbohydrate, fat, and lipids, these you must have gone through in your biology. Yes or no? You must have studied these terms, carbohydrates and fats, in your biology. That is, they are compounds only, compounds of carbon and other things that play a part as a part of your food. Yes. So these compounds, they are present as a part of your food, and also when microorganisms or decomposers decompose a body, an animal body, or maybe a plant, then these carbohydrates and lipids, they are liberated in the environment. All right, they are sent back to the soil or to the water, and these comprise of the organic substances of the abiotic part. All right, these are also considered as the abiotic components of the ecosystem, but they are known as organic substances. All right, the abiotic component, just now I told you that it has got inorganic substances and organic substances. So these carbohydrates and lipids, they form the organic substances. Clear? They mix with the soil as humus and humic acid and add to the soil fertility by getting converted into mineral elements. Again, these compounds, they are broken down by the decomposers or by the microorganisms, and it forms the humus or the humic acid that is very essential for the soil fertility. All these cycles you have studied before, and you're going to deal with further also, that how the same plant is forming the food, the same compounds are changed and they form up the food that is consumed by us. Then when we die, or maybe when we excrete, these compounds are again broken down into different forms and they are returned to the soil. They add to the soil fertility. Again, the same compounds are absorbed by the plant. So the cycle goes. The nature has formed itself in such a way that the components that are present on the earth, none of the components, they are going to escape the earth, and none of the components, they are going to come from space into the earth. All right. The balance has to be maintained from the components present here on the earth itself. Yes. They are going to be just transformed from one form into the other form. It is going to exist in a particular form at a place, then it is going to exist as another form at another place. It is just that the cycle continues, and we keep utilizing the same resources again and again. All right. So the same compounds, they are getting converted into humus, and then they add the fertility to the soil, and they get converted into mineral elements, and these would again be absorbed by the plants. Ecological factors include climatic factors like light, temperature, pressure, rainfall, humidity, wind velocity, atmospheric gases, and soil conditions. The third part of the abiotic component was what? Ecological factors. Now, what are ecological factors? All these environmental conditions, that is your temperature. What is the temperature of a place? If it is very hot, the plants and animals would adapt themselves according to it, like in deserts. The temperatures are very high. All right, because of that, the humidity is affected, because of that rainfall is affected, and because due to high temperature there is a reduced rainfall, there is a little amount of water present, therefore the plants and animals over there, they have adapted in such a way that they require less water, or the rainfall or humidity near a sea coast would be different from that of a desert. So here at the sea coast, the animals and the plants, they will have adapted themselves in a different way. Like usually on the sea coast we find coconut trees. How are coconut trees? They have long trunks, and then the leaves are at the top, just at the top, so that the water does not disrupt the growth of the leaves and the fruits. The fruits and the leaves are at the top of the long trunk. All right. So similarly, in the deserts we find that the plants do not have enough leaves. They just have spines, or if there are leaves, they are very tiny to prevent the loss of water. All right. So all these things that affect the growth of the living organisms, as well as the existence of non-living components. That is, the non-living, the minerals that are found near the sea coast would be different from the minerals that are found maybe in a mangrove or maybe in the Himalayas. All right. The Himalayas would be rich in some other mineral, while the sea coast would be rich in some other mineral. So these factors also affect the ecosystem in various ways. All these factors can be termed as light, temperature, pressure, rainfall, humidity, wind velocity. Wind velocity is the speed of the wind, the speed with which the wind is blowing, or in which direction the wind is blowing. Whether the wind is blowing from the sea to the land or from land to the sea. Each and everything has an effect on the other things. All right. Then atmospheric gases, the atmosphere and the gases that are present in it. And then the soil conditions. I told you soil conditions would mean sandy soil or clayey soil or loamy soil, or maybe whether it is red soil or black soil, different things are there. Then pressure and sound waves are important factors for the aquatic organism. All right, the life that is under the sea, all right, or maybe in the rivers or in the oceans. Underwater life, it is affected by pressure. Pressure would mean that at the top level of the sea, the uh, plants would and animals would have adapted in the different way. But at the depths of the sea, where as you go deep down, the pattern of the growth of plants and animals would keep changing. And deep down, you would find different kinds of fishes that would require less light, that would have adapted to survive in very high pressure, because a huge amount of water is present above them, that is exerting a lot of pressure on them. Their bodies would have adapted in such a way that they do not feel that pressure, that they are existing at the depths of the sea. All right, so these factors, they are termed as ecological factors, and they have a vast effect on the various living as well as non-living parts of the ecosystem. All right, so this was a complete set of abiotic components. What are the abiotic components? The inorganic substances, the organic substances, and then the ecological factors. Now we move to the biotic component of the ecosystem. Biotic components include the living elements of the ecosystem. Underline that. They include the living elements of the ecosystem. Each biotic component community comprises of producers, consumers, and decomposers. I just explained these three terms. Producers are the ones that are manufacturing food. Consumers are the ones that consume that food. And then decomposers are the ones that break down the waste material, either the waste material of the two components or maybe their dead bodies. That is, when plants die, they are going to decompose and return the minerals to the environment, or when the animals die, these decomposers are going to decompose the compounds and liberate the nutrients to go back into the environment. Or when waste materials come from the producers or consumers, they are going to decompose that waste material also, so that the nutrients are released and they are sent back to the soil or water wherever required. So the three components are producers, consumers, and decomposers. Producers are the green plants which synthesize food. Please underline. Producers are the green plants which synthesize food for all the living organisms directly or indirectly. Then the consumers are those living organisms that cannot produce their own food and obtain it from the producers. All right. So this was producer's definition and then consumer's definition. If you are asked, you can answer it. Now, in producers, you see that it is written that they synthesize food for all living organisms directly or indirectly. Why is it this termed, that directly or indirectly? Directly would mean that a deer is coming and eating the grass. All right. So the deer is consuming the producer directly. The producer has manufactured its leaf and the deer is consuming that leaf, and therefore it is directly consuming the producer. Therefore the deer is directly dependent on the producer for its food. But when a lion is eating up a deer, it is not eating the grass. It is not eating the grass, it is eating the deer, but it is said to be dependent on the grass. Why? Because the deer existed because of the grass. The deer gained health because of the grass, and that healthy deer is being consumed by the lion, and the energy that had been transferred from the grass to the deer has now been transferred to the lion. The energy that was absorbed from the sun changed to food by the producers, then it was sent to the consumer, that is the deer, and the same energy is now transferred to the lion. So you can say that maybe the lion is not directly eating the grass, but it is indirectly eating it. Why? Because it is eating the deer that ate grass. Understood? So it is indirectly dependent on the producers. So consumers, they depend on producers, maybe directly or indirectly, but they consume the producers. So the producers are manufacturing food for the consumers directly or indirectly. Then the consumers are the living organisms that cannot produce their own food, and therefore they obtain it from producers. So the consumers are obtaining food from the producers. These are further divided into primary consumers, secondary consumers, or tertiary consumers, depending on whether they are consuming the producer directly or indirectly. That is, the deer would be the primary consumer, the lion would be the secondary consumer, and when the lion maybe gets hurt or dies or something like that, the hyenas and jackal, they come and eat the lion. They cannot eat it when it is alive, because they cannot overcome the lion. But once it dies or something, or maybe gets hurt and they are able to attack it, they would come in a pack and then they would hunt him down and eat the lion. Sorry, it's not him. So they are going to hunt the lion down and eat it. So now the hyenas become the tertiary consumer. Whatever comes after primary and secondary would be tertiary, the third one in the chain. All right, they would become tertiary consumer. Then there are decomposers or saprophytes. They are microorganisms. Please underline it. Decomposers or saprophytes are microorganisms, mostly bacteria, fungi, protozoa, etc. They decompose the dead plants and animals and break them into simpler compounds. As explained just now, that they are going to decompose the decomposer. Saprophyte is the same thing. You can consider the two terms as same things, and they are what? They are going to decompose the compounds, whether of waste material or whether of the dead bodies. They are going to decompose the compounds, and they are going to release the nutrients into the environment, air, water, or soil, as suited according. Means if gases are being released, so it is going to be mixed into the air or maybe into the soil. So these are the two components of the ecosystem, biotic and abiotic.